Hello, welcome to Life Matters. I'm your host, Brendan O'Connell. Well, today we have a very special guest who, by really no fault of her own, has become entangled in the whole abortion holocaust that's gone on since January of 1973. On January 22nd of 1973, when I was a freshman at Georgetown University, two decisions came down on the same day. One was Roe versus Wade, which is perhaps the more famous decision dealing with abortion. The second decision was something called Doe versus Bolton. And Doe versus Bolton was equally as devastating because it said that a woman could have an abortion for pretty much any reason whatsoever under the auspices of, quote-unquote, the health of the mother, all the way up to birth. And today we have Doe herself is here. Her name is Sandra Cano. Well, welcome, Sandra Cano.
Thank you.
Sandra, how was it that, first of all, you got involved in this lawsuit? Or maybe you could tell us what actually happened that led up to your name being involved in a case called Doe versus Bolton that went all the way to the United States Supreme Court.
Well, unbelievable as it seems, I went to the Atlanta Legal Aid to see about getting a divorce from my husband, and I had two children at the time that was in foster care. And this led up to me coming in contact with the attorney, Margie Pitt-Haynes, the one that became involved in this case. I had went to see the legal aid, and I had a different attorney. I don't know if I can legally say her name because she's still alive. But after 2 weeks, I went down there. She agreed to help me get my divorce. And I was really excited because the legal aid here in Atlanta is for people that don't have money, and it's attorneys that will represent you free of charge. And so out of this case, when I went down there, never did I realize, or they were telling me that I was going to become involved in this case. 2 weeks later, after I met with the legal aid attorney, there was another lady. She asked me would I come in. She wanted to talk to me. And that's when I saw Margie there. And Margie said that she was going to get my two children out of foster care for me. The other attorney was going to get my divorce. So I'm thinking, wow, thank you, this is incredible. They're going to help me. They've got, they're willing to reach out and help. So through that's how, unbeknown to me, Doe v. Bolton got registered in the courts, and I became Doe.
Well, so you went into this Atlanta clinic, and they helped you get a divorce from your husband, whom I believe you said had a problem with alcoholism. And
he had lots of problems, more than that. It's incredible. He was just a horrible person. He was the first person I had ever dated. I married him. He was the first guy I'd ever had relationships. I had 4 children out of this marriage, and I had enough because he was in and out of jail. I didn't realize at the time, he's passed away, but I didn't realize at the time that he was dealing with a brain tumor, and supposedly that's what was making him act like he was doing. I'm not really sure, but still, to me, he was an evil person. I was young, didn't know any better, naive, and I just stayed in that marriage, and finally, I'd had enough. I just thought, I'm hurting my children. I'm hurting me. What is wrong with me? It's time. I've got to let go whatever happens. So that's how I went to the legal aid, and they agreed to help me get a divorce. And at that time, I had 2 children in foster care.
You had 1 at home and 2 in foster care, and you were pregnant with a 4th. Is that correct?
No, what had happened, I had 2 children at the time. and they were in foster care. Well, during this period with him, before it led up to me going to get the divorce, I had a third child, and we had moved to Dallas, Texas. Well, he wouldn't work. I was left up there. I didn't know really, that's how naive I was, to go to the family service to get help. I was up there barely able to keep milk for the baby, and this was about 2 weeks. I'd given birth to her, and we moved up there. And a couple of weeks later, I went hungry half the time. He was out running the streets. And I just thought, I'd done a lot of praying. It killed me to do this. I mean, it really broke my heart, but I said, God, I've got to do something. I can't let another child suffer. I've got 2 children. It's my first obligation. I've got to get them out of foster care, get them home with me. And the third baby, she was so young, 2 weeks old, and I'm thinking, she's got a chance to have a family. And I gave her up for adoption in Dallas, Texas. And when that happened, I came on back home. Well, then he followed me down here later on. I was through with him. And he followed me back home to Georgia, and then I gave in to him, and I became pregnant again. That's when I became pregnant with the 4th child. That was Melissa. That was the Supreme Court baby, as I call her, that was involved in abortion.
I see. Well, so you went in there to get a divorce and to get 2 of your children back out of foster care. You had a young child just born, and then you got pregnant again. And where is it that they could somehow they used your name? How could they use your name? Unless you signed papers or something? That's what I don't understand.
That's weird, because how you asked that, I never realized that. What had happened, the pediatrician that I was going to, they somehow or another, my mother, she, bless her heart, she didn't mean bad, but she thought she was doing good for me. She was working with Margie because of my unstable life and everything, that she thought I needed an abortion. And I said, no, I will never have an abortion. I will never. They didn't listen to me. And so they went ahead. At that time of my life, I had to depend on my mother, and she was very controlling. This is my way or the highway. Well, I had no place to go or anything. But I stayed there. But she had arranged, well, Margie had, for me to have an abortion at Georgia Baptist Hospital. And I kept saying, I will not have one. I will not have an abortion. So in order to, the night before, no one would listen, and I had never done this by myself again, I got on a bus, and I went straight to Hugo, Oklahoma, where my ex-husband's grandmother lived. She was a very sweet lady, and she took me in, and I went up there, and then I think a couple of days later, Margie found out where I was. She and the other attorney called, and they said, you will not have to have an abortion. We just need you to sit in the courtroom. Because all along they had told me it was about a women's liberation case. They'd explained to me, if you do a job that a man does, should you not be paid the same wages? Well, of course, you should be. But back then, I was so unstable. I could care less about women's liberation or anything like that. I was trying to survive. My life was all messed up. And I was young and naive. I didn't know what to do or where to go. I just had to depend on this and that. And so anyway, I ran up there to Hugo, Oklahoma, and then they got a hold of me up there, and they said if I would be willing to come back, I wouldn't have to have an abortion. So Margie sent me a plane ticket. I came back the next day. When I came back, she and the attorney, with a group of other ladies, I don't know who they were, met me. And that night I spent the night with the attorney in her little apartment. The attorney, she was disabled. She was in a wheelchair. And I stayed in her apartment with her. bright and early the next morning, she took me along with Margie, and there were several other ladies we met. We went into a court. I did not know we had a court with more than one judge. I've seen several judges up there, but actually it was 3. And I did not know that I was there for abortion, because they had told me that there was other pregnant ladies there. They had told me to go sit on the bench beside the ladies. Do not talk to anybody. Do not tell them my name. Do not say anything. That's what I did. And out of that, that's how Doe of Bolton became, I think that was North District Court, and I think that's when it was filed in 1970.
Which district court was that?
North District Court, I believe.
In Atlanta, the Atlanta area.
Yes, Atlanta, Georgia.
I see. And did you say that your mother signed an affidavit? Because you said you signed nothing. Is that? Did you sign anything?
I never signed anything. My mother signed it in my behalf because I refused to sign it.
I see. And then, so this case went from that court up through the legal system. When was that? 1970 or 71?
I think it was 70, if I'm not mistaken. My daughter was born, it had to be in 70 when it was filed, because my daughter was born in 70. And November 70. So I think this was April the 16th, 1970, that it was filed in the North District Court in Atlanta.
So you did not really know what the case was about, is that correct?
I didn't know that they was involving me in abortion. I didn't know anything about it whatsoever. And, you know, that's been hard to let people understand how somebody could be involved to the extent my name is and yet know nothing.
Well, and then it went through the court system, and it went up to the United States Supreme. Were you following this at the various federal levels, or when it went up to the Supreme Court? Were you
I did not know anything about that. Later on, I can't say what time, but I do know that once, a few months, I think, before it became, the decision come down, I'm thinking that I was the person legalizing abortion. I'm thinking, oh Lord, this is so wrong. I did not know, I was so naive, I did not know there was a Norma McCorvey. I didn't know that there was a main case and then the companion case. I knew nothing about any of this. But once I found out and everything, it really made me angry. How dare them take and use my name? And to me, it's like they're slandering me. They're putting me, I've always been pro-life. I've never thought anything about an abortion, and I could never do that. I don't care what the circumstances. And I'm thinking, here I am, a companion case to give a death sentence, not only at the beginning of birth, till the child could be legally born. You could take a baby's life up until the date it could be born. And I'm thinking, how in the world could somebody be so heartless? And they're using my name on this. It's unbelievable. It's frustrating, and it makes me angry. And the chief not the chief, but one of the justices, I had a chance to read some of the decisions of the Supreme Court arguments. When they were asked by Dorothy Beasley, we have no interrogatories. We don't know if Doe is real. It says, all we have is this affidavit here. And they said it was irrelevant, it didn't matter. Well, yes, it does matter. Yes, it does matter. If you're going to take me, my name, my person, and you're going to go to the highest court in the land and say Sandra Cano wants to say it's okay to abort babies, and that is false, to me that should be brought down. Somebody committed fraud, and they're getting away with it, and the Supreme Court allowed it.
So at the Supreme Court level, they didn't even know if Doe or Sandra Cano was a real person.
They didn't care. They didn't know. They didn't care.
And
the only so-called evidence they had was an affidavit that was not signed by me, that was signed by my mother.
Uh-huh. Now, which other Supreme Court justices, I see a quote here which of the Supreme Court justices said it doesn't really matter if... Douglas, William O. Douglas?
I don't know the whole name. I just know it's Justice Douglas.
Douglas. He said, what does it matter if she is real or not?
Exactly.
So, my goodness gracious. Now, you tried for quite a while to get the information, and you were being stymied. Tell us about that. On your own case, what was that all about?
Well, what I did, I went to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. I met a really nice reporter. I don't know if I can say her name. I don't think she works any longer, but Gail White. And I told her, it was unbelievable. I come out of the woodwork here. I'm telling her I'm Jane Doe. I didn't know it was Mary Doe. And I says, I'm the person that they're claiming legalized abortion. And she didn't laugh at me. She just, I don't know if she thought I'd lost my marbles and was trying to get published. I really don't know, but she was real nice. She said, well, first you've got to prove who you are. And she said, in order to do that, you've got to go down to the court and you've got to legally be able to prove that you are this person. So I thought, okay, how do I do this? So I found out that the records to Doe of Bolton and Roe and Doe and everything was out at the Federal Archives building for Sandra Cano. So I called the Federal Archive building and I told them, I said, I need to find out, my records is out there. I said I was supposedly Jane Doe, and I says I need to get those records. And the lady got really quiet. And I guess she thought, well, she didn't know what to think. She said, well, honey, you'll have to come out here. She gave me the address. The next day I went out there, and I went in and sat down. This was at the, well, no, I got ahead of myself. I went down to the court, Superior Court, and when I went in there, the lady said, you've got to look it up. There's no Jane Doe here. So she gave me a microfiche. I'd never used one of those, really didn't know what it was. She was very patient. She showed me how to operate it. And I kept searching down there, and I keep coming to Mary Doe. I didn't see a Jane Doe. So finally, I went up and I said, I'm Mary Doe. And I said, this is the records I need. I was so ignorant, I didn't know that the records were sealed. I'm thinking if this is the records supposedly in my name, I should be allowed to get them. And she said they were no longer there. There's at the Archive building. That's when I went out to the Federal Archive, and when I went out there, I told them who I was, and I wanted to see the record, and I had to show my ID. Well, they brought this big old book in front of me. I was so overwhelmed. There was words in there. I didn't even know how they were spelled. I didn't know how they were pronounced, and a lot of scribbling. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness. But I saw some things in there. I got a little upset because I'm thinking, this is not true. And there was an envelope in there, and it says identity of Doe. Well, I took that envelope, and I was starting to open it. It was sealed. And the lady said, oh, no, honey, you'll go to prison. You can't touch that. That's records. They're frozen. You can't open it.
So they were sealed? They were sealed. Is that what you're saying?
Pardon
me? This information was sealed so that you could not open it. Is that correct?
The identity of me was sealed in that book. And so she told me, honey, in order to get this envelope to prove your identity, you go back down to the court, Superior Court, you have to file to have the records unsealed. So I went back down there and I told the lady, I want to file to have my records unsealed. She said, well, you need an attorney. I said, well, I don't have an attorney and I don't have money to get one. I said, would you please show me how this is supposed to be filed? And she says, I'm not supposed to, but she covered the person's name and showed me how you sign one of those and you to fill it out, and she covered up the names. Well, I said, do you have some paper and a pen for me? And she did. I sat down, and I handwritten affidavit to have my records unsealed. Well, that following week, the judge called me. He said, this is off the record and highly unlikely. He said, but, honey, do you have an attorney? I said, no. I said, I just want to prove who I am. He said, well, if you can, you need to get an attorney. I didn't know that Margie and two other guys was going to be there fighting me, opening my records. So, if I'm supposed to, this is my records, why am I going through all these problems? If I'm this person and I proved I'm Sandra Cano, why is this taking all this work to do?
So this lady, this attorney, her name is Marjorie what?
Margie Pitt Hames. She's passed away.
And she supposedly sucked you in on this case, and now when it came to unsealing the records, she was trying to stop you from doing that. Is that correct?
Yes, and I didn't understand because I thought she was a friend because she acted like she was there to help me if I needed help or whatever. But after that, I sort of looked and I understood why. She was befriending me not because she cared about me as a person. She had an agenda, and I was so naive and wouldn't question, and I was trusting her. And that's why I guess she had the record sealed. She didn't want anybody to know and talk to me because if they'd ever talked to me, they'd have saw this was a fraud from day one.
Were you ever able to get the records unsealed?
Yes, sir, we were. I contacted Michael Ferris. He's someplace in Virginia. I've lost contact with him. And he got me in contact with an attorney, Wendell Bird, here in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. And Mr. Bird went with me. He represented me. He went with me to the court date when we was going to get the records unsealed. Mm-hmm. And that's when I saw Margie and two other gentlemen sitting over there. And Margie was sort of smirking at me, and I'm thinking, why are you acting like this? I didn't really understand what was going on. And I couldn't understand her behavior towards me, but we give them my license, I give them my birth certificate,
right,
my marriage certificate, I give all the information. And Judge Forrester, he unsealed the record. He says, yes, this is Mary Doe. And that's how I got the records unsealed. And from there, Miss White, Gail White, she started a newspaper article, and then it just took off. Everybody realized who I was. And then I had my identity out there, but, you know, I still can't understand why Beverly Bolton still companion case up there, law of the land. It's like I've talked on deaf ears and nobody wants to hear or they don't care. And I'm thinking, let's get this battle going. You know, there was a terrible wrong here. Innocent lives is being taken. They're victims. I was a victim. How do we change this?
Wow. Well, Sandra, our time is coming close to an end, and so it took you quite a few years to get that unsealed. Is that correct?
Exactly.
And how has it, just in a closing remarks, how has it affected your life since this decision, where you were basically snookered? Is that a correct assessment?
I would say yes, because I knew nothing about what was going on. And once I did find out what was going on and what part that I supposedly played in it, I went to 1974 to the Georgia Right to Life, trying to get them to help me, telling them this is a lie, But when you don't have details of everything and you don't know all the information, these people knew all the details because they were very pro-life and involved in all of it. I'd never been just a person. You know, I wasn't, I believed pro-life, but I didn't call myself pro-life or anything.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's just natural. You don't have abortions. You don't take a life.
Mm-hmm. So that was in 1984, is that correct?
74.
74. So shortly after
When I found out, I went there, and I had a heavy burden on me because this is something no one wants to, you know, have in their life. If I passed on tomorrow, Sandra Cano is going to be out there linked to Doe of Bolton. She's going to be linked to abortion. And to me, that's horrible because it's against everything I believe.
Wow, that's really something. Well, Sandra, our time, unfortunately, has come to a close. I will have to do this again, maybe a follow-up, and find out further, you know, what has happened since and what your thoughts are, and some of the people that you've become friends with, i.e. maybe Norma McCorvey, and over the years, because I do know that you did have a lawsuit, and perhaps we could talk about that, trying to overturn this Doe versus Bolton case, which used your name, unbeknownst to you, in a fashion that really promotes abortion. Well, folks, we hope you found today's show to be unique, informative, content-rich, truthful, and thought-provoking. And we hope that we'll see you next week. We want to thank our guest for coming on. She's had some health issues recently, and we're very appreciative that she came on the show. Well, thank you, and thank you, Sandra.
Hi, I'm Colby Mazzarella. Welcome to Life Matters, where we interview guests who protect human life from conception to natural death. Today's guest is C.J. Doyle, the Executive Director of Catholic Action League of Massachusetts. Hi, C.J. Welcome to the show.
Colby, delighted to be here.
Thank you. Tell us a little about the Catholic Action League of Massachusetts, and how do you defend human life?
The Catholic Action League was founded in 1995. We were the former Massachusetts chapter of a national organization, the Catholic League for Religious and Civil Rights. And in 1995, we became independent to concentrate entirely on Massachusetts issues.